First up in the black dev shirt, we have CCP Explorer, Technical Director EVE Online, aka Erlander Smári Thorsteinsson. How are you, Erlander? How are you doing?
Good, I'm fine.
Okay, next up, also in the black dev shirt, we have CCP Ripley, Development Director, EVE Online, aka Stefania G. Haldorsdottir. And how are you doing today?
I'm great,
Yeah.
thanks.
And last but by all means not least, we have the Right Honourable Lord Grayscale, Chamber of Cambridge, aka Matt Woodward. Now, with the exception of Grayscale on the end here, every person on this panel is a project manager. You lucky, lucky people. So I'll happily have words with anyone that says project management is not sexy. We even read novels about project management. Seriously, the love interest for the protagonist in this novel is quite a saucy prospect. It adds a whole new meaning to 50 Shades of Grey. Now, so just to manage your expectations a little bit about this session, we're going to go through some of the key features and the headline features in Retribution, and then we'll open up for questions. But before that, I just want to say that one of the key principles when you're giving together a presentation is to keep the content relevant to your audience. But that's boring, so I'm going to talk about what I like. So does anyone here work in software development? Yeah. Okay, there's a few of you, okay. Now, do any of you use Agile in some shape or form? Yeah. Okay, so there's a few of you, yeah. Now, this is pretty well spread at CCP. We have a fairly ubiquitous metric called the complexity point, or the story point. This is basically, it's fast becoming an alternative to estimating software tasks to time. It's basically a comparative metric. Because the human brain is typically really bad at estimating work in time, so this gives them a way of sizing tasks differently. And it can include ideas such as time, the difficulty of the task, or maybe the uncertainty. And because I say we're really bad at estimating things in time, and I think this guy said it best. So if we were to use an example, if I was going to walk down to Islensky Barin, you might size that and say, maybe that's a 3. That's around about the size of that task. But if we were going to walk to the CCP office, maybe you'd say that was an 8. You know, it's walking, it's a little bit bigger, it's a comparative. And, but maybe if we were going to bicycle to the CCP office, maybe that's a 5. And so this is a very effective way for us to size up our work when we're putting together these expansions. So now you're getting an idea for what interests me. So, for you guys, Retribution looked a lot like this, and there was a whole lot of this, and we hope there was some of this. And it was about this guy. Do you remember Vic? And just from all the channels we listened to, the response to Retribution was that it was just overwhelmingly positive. You know, people enjoyed it. It was a great expansion. And we'll go into some of the reasons as to why a little bit later. But from where I was standing in my particular professional capacity within CCP, Retribution looked like this. It's pretty gray, huh? But not all project management is gray. And this is the progression of the expansion. Here it is again in color. So this is what I spend my days staring at. And the red portion is of particular interest, because this is where I get to crush the dreams of our developers as I axe features from the expansion, because it's not going to make it. But so while I wouldn't want to bore you with all the gory details of the Retribution development plan, I spent a lot of my time looking at this And this is more of retribution, and more of retribution, and it's here, and here, and here, and there, and there's a little bit of there, and there it all is. Oh, God. This was retribution for us. So, incidentally, there are doors located at both sides of the room if you find yourself in the wrong presentation. So, looking at some of the features we delivered, one of the big initiatives during Retribution, and is something that we're really excited about within CCP, is just modernizing the user interface. And it's really with a view to identifying what that critical tactical information is that you need in a pinch, and moving that out of the spreadsheet and into the scene. You know, as humans, when we think, our brains move at 24 frames per second, but when we react, it's at 1,000 frames per second, and so it's much more of a drive to make that user interface just intuitive, and so you can react and get the information you need. And so we had the greatly improved configurable combat text, which is a big improvement over the old messaging system. We have the new targeting reticules, and the module activation lines, and it just all gives you that visceral feedback of what's going on in the scene. And this is led up by the player experience team, and this is really just the beginning of this work. And you'll hear a lot more from those guys over the next few days about the plans that they have. And interestingly enough, we sized that at 95 points. Now, moving on. We introduced a whole load of new, great-looking ships in Retribution. We added a new destroyer line, offering alternative weapon systems, and just an alternative for a hard-hitting anti-frigate platform in PvP. Great fun to fly, and just looking at the numbers out on Tranquility at the moment, these are obviously really popular with you guys. We also added the ore frigates, the Venture. This gave people an alternative to sample some of those more precious ores in dangerous areas of space. And incidentally, I actually named this ship the Venture, which I was very proud of. I'm not going to tell you what the original name was. Okay, and we sized that work, 118 points. And so, here we have the poster child of broken features in EVE Online. Bounty hunting was available for as far back as I can remember. I think I started in 2005, and I didn't quite get this feature at the time. It was there, and people talked about it, but it wasn't in the best state. And we took the opportunity in Retribution to just reimagine a feature and a profession that is a lot of people express an interest in. It's something that they like to do. And we made it so that the sponsor could actually inflict real pain and suffering on their target by enabling or having the payout related to the loss of their ship and the damage that was caused. So it was pretty difficult to exploit the system. And this was a huge success, and trillions upon trillions of ISK have been placed and claimed since this was deployed in Retribution. 134 points. And moving on, ship balancing. We touched over 40 Tech 1 ships in Retribution. The tier-side effort led up by CCP Aterbium and CCP FOSI. This was really a pretty prolific rate of ship balancing that they did in Retribution. We looked at Tech 1 frigates, Tech 1 cruisers. We actually offered a viable alternative to the logistics class of ship in a Tech 1 cruiser hull, and the same for logistics frigates and the associated modules with that, which really shaked up small gang PvP. And this is just a really good investment for us, because as much as people moan about their favorite ship being nerfed or changing, it just reinvigorates the game. It changes the meta, people try out new fits, and it keeps things alive, and it's a really good thing to come back to and see that your favorite ship is now much more relevant and competitive, both in PvP and PvE. And we also looked at the original destroyer lines as part of this as well. And I urge you to go and see Iterbium and Fozzie's presentation. I believe it's tomorrow on ship balancing, and they're going to go into much more detail and talk a little bit about their plans for Odyssey. 154 points. And moving on, Crime Watch system. Did you like that? So, as some of you may know, Crime Watch is also the name of the system in EVE's code base that handles, it's the aggression manager, basically. So all of the interactions in PvP, when you're flagging, you're taking the old GCC, when you're repping people, moving between systems, this system keeps track of all of that. Particularly in large, low-sec conflicts, this was causing untold load on the server. But also because it's such an old system, people were bolting onto it and fixing it and adding to it, and it was becoming very brittle, and people were hesitant to work with it, which is a real shame because it was denying us the opportunity to add some really interesting features around this. So CCP Grayscale and CCP Masterplan took the opportunity to take this project and refactor the whole back end of it in the code, and they deployed that during Inferno last year. But it also unlocked the opportunity to look at the timers and add the safety system, and of course the dueling mechanic that was added in 1.1. And for me, this was a real game changer, because when I'm PvPing, and I've played many PvP games over the years, I don't mind losing to a skilled opponent, but what I hate losing is when I don't understand the rules of the engagement, which some of you may attest to. I think that's a big barrier of entry to newer players in EVE, is that they just, I mean, you have to configure the overview, for example, before you can even shoot someone competitively. So, yeah, this was just a real win for us, and again, Masterplan's going to go into some of the numbers. You can see how activity in PvP has just gone through the roof, and we think it's a result of these changes. And it was a pretty awesome investment for us, at a massive 264 points. So this was one of the most sizable deliveries we did in Retribution. And just to recap on some of the other areas, thanks to the input from the community and a real effort from the CSM 7, we did a really strong second iteration of faction warfare. We looked at system upgrades and NPC behavior and defensive plexing, all of these different opportunities and rewards, and that finished off this feature and put it in a good place compared to how it was maybe 3 years ago. We also brought the drone regions up to speed, adding in holo spawns and officer spawns there. That work added in. We also did a strong second iteration on the unified inventory, which, as far as I understand, is in a good place now. Okay, well, again, this was a massive project, and we couldn't have got it to the place it was because there were just so many edge cases of use without input from you guys. And boy, did you give your input. But it's a difficult one because, I mean, if we take the example of tabbed inventory management, as an older player, that was the way I managed my inventory, and this was something that was very vocal in the feedback from the community. But as a new player coming in, you know, managing Windows through an index tree just makes perfect sense. It's the same as a Windows OS. So that's some of the challenges we face dealing with people that are experienced in an old way of working and people that are coming in new to the game and want something that's intuitive and easier to work with. And we continue with the V3 project, just bringing our huge backlog of art assets up to standard with our new shader paradigms. So they're looking really good there. And again, I encourage you to go to the art panel over the weekend, and they will go into much more detail about how that project's coming along and what we can hope to expect once the project is complete. We also added the salvage drone, best part of Retribution. And we also did a visual redesign, part of our renovation projects for the Tempest, the Stabber, and the Megathron. Now, yeah, I couldn't believe it. I remember just before we were deploying Retribution that the feedback on the new Megathron hull was just out of this world. People were so upset about it. But I guess that's an okay thing if that's the biggest thing you've got to complain about in the expansion. But yeah, I think it looks great. And it was obviously, it's an iconic ship and people were pretty passionate about it. And you know, it's good to hear it. But so that's a roundup of pretty much the overview of features for Retribution. We really want to hear your feedback and what you thought about it. We have a microphone at the side of the stage here, I believe. Okay, there's a stand, but there's no microphone. Could we possibly get mics in the corner here and one here, so we can take some questions from the audience? So if you want to just form a queue here, and we'll take questions, and let us know what you thought about Retribution, and we'll, if you wanted to direct it to one of the individuals, by all means. Otherwise, we'll try and answer as best we can. Pull it forward in front. Let's see you.
I didn't see it. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Let's just get a little bit further out here, yeah, so we can see who's talking. Hi there. What's your name and what's your question?
I'm Zenuria, and before I ask my question, I want to say that I think Retribution was one of the best expansion packs I had the privilege of enjoying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And my question is, will there be further work done on the UI? The UI, not just the overview, but in general, it's way better than it was, but I think you can have an amazing game, but a non-intuitive UI, and then you're going to lose people because they're not going to want to go through, how do I do this, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, can I take this
Yeah,
one?
sure.
It's like the UI is so important when you're playing the game and you get the feedback from the UI. And this is something that we have actually been actively looking at. How do we improve it? And in a game like Eve, like Rory was describing, there are plenty of old systems in there. And one of the old system is, in many cases, is the UI. And I encourage you to check out the UI roundtable. There is a UX roundtable and a UI roundtable led by our UI people. And so this work is continuing, yes.
And the user interface roundtable is right after this one, and the UX right after that one.
Yeah, okay.
In roundtable 4.
Yeah.
And also just in the keynote as well, there'll be lots of discussion and detail about that. Hi there, name and question.
Hi, I'm Rippard Tag in-game. I have 2 questions, actually. The first one, in past years, we've seen that the art team is often the bottleneck to bring in new features into EVE Online. Speaking from a project management standpoint, do you think that's still the case?
So it really depends. I mean, there's a certain pipeline when producing art assets. There's a set of stages that they go through, whether it's from concept to modeling to mock out and then to producing the final asset with any shaders they have on them. This is a pretty fixed process for producing a new asset, particularly a new ship, and the art department has very high standards for that. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bottleneck. I mean, I don't know if you work in development yourself. I mean, there's always a bottleneck somewhere, but this is, I don't know if any of you have ever worked in graphics rendering. That's what your job is to find the bottleneck, and it's not that it's a problem that it's there. You're always just moving on, and you solve an issue with the bottleneck, and then you find the next one, and it's all just about optimization. So, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that the art is a bottleneck, no. I'd say that they have very high standards for making EVE look fantastic, and that's just something we have to work with.
Okay, great. And if I can do a second question just very briefly. Again, speaking from a project management standpoint, the documentation of the game, bringing new players into the game and explaining new features to players in the game, particularly people who have returned to the game after several months or several years. Is there a project team whose job it is to kind of think about this from a delivery standpoint? I can't tell you, the Crime Watch system is fantastic. Kudos for the Crime Watch system, but I've explained it to people literally hundreds of times, and there's no kind of obvious area to learn about it, to read about it, to learn the upsides and the downsides to it.
Yeah. You want to take this one?
Yeah. So one of the things that we are aiming for is that we want to make the game so our system so intuitive that you don't need to write up like a whole lot of documentary, and you have to read 1 hour before you go and try out new system. And that's the goal, that we want to make it intuitive. But there is also, there are so many players in EVE who have distributed such a good material on how to play some of those things. And I'm not saying that we are casting the responsibility completely out there.
Thank you.
But this is one of those things that we are always looking at, and it's when you go through the tutorial, there we are trying to explain the game to you in steps. But we would, like I said, we would rather go into this being so intuitive that we don't need to explain it. So that's the goal. Yeah.
Can we get Grayscale's mic on, please?
Hi.
You can in between.
Okay, I'll go over here. Snuggle up. The other side of that is we do have the Evilopedia, and we do kind of rely basically on you guys to fill that out a lot because that seems to work for us. I think we're still syndicating copy from EVE University, right? Someone at EVE University, CCP Ginger was looking into that a while ago, making sure that we can, because we were writing guides and we were finding you guys were writing better guides. So we were why are we not getting the experts to do this rather than us doing it, kind of thing. So.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm Knut, and I have a question. Who do I bribe to make the tower go away? No, I'm joking.
So I didn't get the question.
I said, who do I bribe to make the tower go away? But I'm joking. My question is, I
don't know what you asked to go away, but I'll happily take your money.
the tower. What do you think was the coolest feature that didn't make it into Retribution? What's the absolutely best baby that you had to kill?
So, let me think. So one of the hardest things for me was, are you aware of the effect bar? This shows you the negative effects that are happening to you. This was really, really awesome feature just because it, trying to dig through the overview to see who was scramming you or who was, webbing you or whatever, that was really difficult. And so when the first iteration of the effect bar went in Inferno, I believe, that was a really nice change. And we had a whole bunch of new plans on how to improve that, adding in, assistance effects and just a greater variety of effects and just options to target and sort of manage those targets in an overview of hundreds. This was being handled by Team 5.0. They were the same team that were doing Crime Watch. And just because of as you saw, the Crime Watch feature expanded and we really wanted to nail that. So that was a pretty difficult decision, but that was something we cut sort of halfway through the development cycle.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for Retribution. It's awesome.
Thank you.
G'day CCP, I'm Bam Stroker. That last guy kind of stole my thunder, but I was going to refer to that graph that you showed, the bar graph with all the green, the yellow, and so on, as well as the increased feedback on effects. I was going to ask you what else was in those red boxes that didn't make it in.
So, I mean, there was, apart from the effect bar, there was no major sized features because we'll do the red section in the graph represents sections that, or features that in the beginning of the release cycle for Retribution that we thought we had a realistic chance of completing. Because software development, it's always like a cone of uncertainty. The further away you get from your deployment, the less likely or the less accurate your plan is. And so while the effect bar was the only real feature that was cut, everything else was rather a trimming in the scope of other features. If, for example, we look at factional warfare, we had ideas about how we could basically revamp the visualization of widespread information about what was happening in the war. And so while the factional warfare iteration wasn't cut, we had to scope out those additional features due to time and constraints. And so part of that red section would rather represent a trimming of features that made it rather than some uber shiny just being axed completely.
Yeah, and for example, with the Crime Watch stuff, with design, we always kind of try to design ahead of where we're going to get to because we never want to reach a point where like our program is Ninja something, and they're like, we finished 2 weeks early, what do we do next? And we're like, So like the design is always going to be, and because we like to dream big and we like to just write loads of stuff, like the design tends to stretch much further than we can actually do things, and a lot of that was kind of like, we might get this in, we'll put it in the plan, we'll see where we get. Like the CrimeWatch stuff I was doing, for example, the dueling stuff was all designed up front, and there's a feature that I'm not sure we've even announced it, but Jamie's talking about today or tomorrow, Masterplan's talking about in the CrimeWatch presentation that he's going to be announcing. There's features there that we're now shipping in Odyssey that were designed way back for Retribution, just didn't have time, so this is all kind of stuff that's
It's not getting left behind. So,
Yeah.
alright,
It's Constantine
cool.
out, and it'll Constantine back in again, essentially, when we have time to
Sweet.
get to it. So.
And just one short point on that, like the things that you see in the want category, those are sometimes the things that come later in a point release, because we like evaluate it again and all the time and say, okay, this is such an important feature, we should then give it out in a point release, and it's being weighted against other priorities. And like Rory is describing, you don't know exactly upfront what you will be able to deliver on, and things also, like Matt is pointing out, they change during the design phase. So some of the cool features that end up in the want on the chart, they might happen later on a point release.
And the third category of things that are in the won't are the things we get like a month in and we go, hang on, that's really dumb. And then we cut it, and it's a good thing that it's in there because we don't actually want to ship that stuff. So that happens too sometimes.
Yeah.
And the venture's original name was the Dasher, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, you made the right choice.
I don't know, what do you think when you hear Dasher? Reindeer, right, yeah.
Oh, thank you for not just Retribution, but Crucible and Inferno as well. You guys are back on the horse. Thanks.
Thanks.
Hi, Stitcher of Reawaken Technologies. I'm a high-sec industrialist, and I got slapped with a 1 billion credit bounty a little while ago. And because I don't do a whole lot of PvP, working it off is taking an extremely long time for me, during which time my freighter is basically a flying piñata for somebody. So I was wondering if there were ever any plans, or if there might be any future plans to have a way of getting rid of your bounty that doesn't involve getting blown up, but maybe is very expensive in other ways, if you've got like a surplus of cash or something.
First I asked, were you bad?
This is going to sound weird, but I got it because I have internet fangirls. True story. I'm not making that up.
Do you want to get that?
Design insight.
Let me just design like in my head as I'm talking. I don't know. I don't know if we have any plans per se. I'd need to go and like talk to people about that. Certainly,
This was hotly contested, particularly with CSM7, and in various meetings as we were going through the development period. Can we allow people a way to get out of this when they've got it on them? But for me, that basically removed the sting from the feature. If you don't, it's like the Wardex system. If you don't have the ability to bring the pain and misery on another player, then it's not as tantalizing a feature. And yes, that presents difficulties for the target, but we would rather people negotiated out of this in a more organic way. So if you've been bad and someone slapped a bounty on you, maybe you can appeal to their better nature and ask them to remove it.
So what you're saying is I'm screwed.
But what we don't want to do is introduce some system where you go off into some dark corner and just grind off your bounty without interacting. That doesn't seem like a good alternative.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, and thank you for everything.
Hello, I'm Psychios from the USCF Inc. Alliance from LOSEC. My question is regarding the V3. As you are finishing up it, and probably Capitals will be next, do you plan on upgrading the textures? Because right now, even if you get everything maxed out and you like scroll into the ship like up close, it's one ugly piece of something.
Yeah.
It just looks awful.
What graphics card do you use, if you don't mind me asking?
GTX 560.
Yeah.
No, it'll be a,
So I can max out everything out,
Yeah.
like all the graphics, but still on an HD screen, you like scroll in to the maximum magnification
Yeah.
you can get, and most ships look just like blurred and ugly, so the textures
So
are not.
we do have textures that are some 4 times the size of what we ship. The concern being the size of the client that has to be downloaded.
That's not really a big. There was in previous FunFests, probably last year, when it was talked about the Nebulas, and that some people didn't like how that there were not that high resolution. Someone from the CCP actually talked about the ability to download an additional pack, like an optional.
Yeah, this is what I was going to say. We do have these available, these larger textures, and this is something that has been discussed extensively, just by the fact you pointed out that it was mentioned last FanFest. But I don't know, perhaps we could get a show of hands. If you would like to get higher resolution textures, would you download them?
Do you doubt your players now?
we've got an art panel this week, right?
Yeah, so there is an art panel this weekend. Also, if you see CCP Seagull, our senior producer, she's the one that ultimately makes the call, so please harass her.
Will do. Just a remark on that. We usually build crazy PCs for multiboxing in and stuff, so like getting 8 gigs of RAM and SSD, and I saw people doing even crazier builds for EVE, like multiboxing 100 clients.
Yeah.
With 4 Xeon-based computers and stuff, so I don't think that bigger textures will be an issue.
Yeah, it's not going to strain. Yeah, well, that's
Thank you.
The audience here has made their desires quite apparent. So we'll, I mean, we'd certainly raise this.
Erlendur, do you want a bigger client?
Well, it's a question of what the majority of players can download, so we'd always have to make it optional. But essentially, we have these textures available. We could make them available for optional download, but at the end of the day, this will mean some engineering work, and currently that is not being prioritized against, or prioritized less against other features. But it's totally doable. So go to the art panel, harass Seagull, and see where that gets us.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. Lorana from Lifestar Industries Corporation. I was wondering, because you introduced new ships and new cruisers and stuff like that. In our corporation and also more broadly, I sort of noticed that people tend to fly non-battleship class a bit more. So are you also looking into more battleship sort of new stuff?
Yes.
I mean,
I don't know if, Matt, you want to talk about some of the ideas that have been thrown around, but it's, I mean, it's certainly something we've discussed. We're always looking at new ideas for new roles that haven't been filled.
Yeah, definitely. Like we've now got 3 guys doing a lot of balance work at Terbium, Fozzie, and now Rise. It's all being looked into. There's been some, I can't remember what's been posted on the forum, what hasn't, but yeah, there's stuff going on.
I mean, all 500 pages of the Battleship feedback thread.
Yeah, there's Battleship stuff. There's Battleship stuff happening, there's sub-Battleship stuff happening, there's more things coming in the future. I would probably, the best thing is go to the ship panels, go to the ship roundtables, balancing stuff, talk to the guys, because they'll be able to give you the most stuff, and you'll be able to lobby them and say, hey, we want more of this. Like, I think we've announced the Navy Battlecruisers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Navy Battlecruisers, that's in big part because of FanFest last year, and people saying, please give us more Battlecruisers, please give us more Navy stuff, because we love it. So that was like, okay, cool, we'll do that. So go run down the ship balancing guys and tell them what you want, and they'll probably be able to sort you out.
But just
unless it's a Black Ops buff, in which case you're out of luck.
While I can't, while we can't maybe speak to any new battleship-size hulls on the horizon, we're very aware that they're decreasing in popularity and in their usage, particularly due to the Tier 3 battle cruisers, the large weapon system battle cruisers that were introduced in Crucible, and the improvement in strength of cruiser-size hulls. We're definitely aware that usage is decreasing on battleships, and this is something we hope to address in Odyssey. And we are discussing ideas around a new battleship-sized hull. There are a few contenders. I'm not going to tell you what they are now. But yeah, so it's definitely on our minds, yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
also it's worth saying we're having like an ongoing discussion about, or at least I think we are still, about the role of battleships and what they're for and how they fit into like combat. And there's different things. Obviously, fleet doctrine is one thing, and then like LOSEC is a completely different thing. And how, like, what should battleships do, especially like always says in the face of like the tier 3s or the attack battle cruisers and all this kind of stuff. Like, so trying to figure out how to make them a really interesting part of the ecosystem rather than just a bigger cruiser is kind of a thing that's being looked at, I think. So.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Glakshana from Troll Alliance. Point on the bounty system and UI. Are you guys planning on adding a confirmation box? Because I accidentally placed a bounty with a few extra zeros once, and there was no confirmation box.
Excellent, good.
Hey, my name is MDS1 from Asgoths of Korea Alliance. We're a wormhole alliance, and we were wondering if you're thinking about doing anything in wormholes. It seemed like it was on the back burner lately. Some maybe Tech 3 frigates or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's a new Tech 3 line has been discussed. Again, the art. Would you like a new Tech 3 line? And so what size do you want it to be? So we have game design by a committee here.
Any size would do.
Hands up for a frigate size T3. And hands up for a battleship size.
Any size.
Those are the same hands.
Any size would do. Any size.
Or what about an industrial T3?
Woo!
What about a capital T3? No, I hate you all. Stop it. Put your hands
Get
down.
out.
Put your hands down.
Thank you.
So, I mean, both Matt and I worked on the original Wormhole team back in Apocrypha, and it was a hugely successful feature, and we actually think the system in its entirety, holistically looking at it, is in a pretty good place. I mean, there are some particular annoyances, rather, with the star-based system as to how it makes life difficult for wormhole dwellers. So we're not looking at the wormhole system per se, but rather how other mechanics behave for wormhole dwellers. And that's something we're looking at pain points around that and how we can address it. Yep. But we think wormholes are in a pretty good place. There's no plans to do anything with it at this point.
Yeah, it's a very good system. We love it. We just are looking for some more content for it. That's
Some more juice, yeah. You know, it's again, it's like we're always saying, we're pretty happy with how it is. It doesn't seem like it needs, the wormholes itself need a lot of work, so we're kind of, there's things we want to do with them, there's definitely things we want to do and things we want to add and things we want to tweak, but we're kind of fairly happy with how it is. There is I'm pretty sure there's a wormhole roundtable at 2 o'clock today. It's not on the schedule, it's kind of hidden. You have to go probe it down or something, but pretty sure it's in roundtable 3 at 2 o'clock, so like if the stuff that you want looked at, let us know. We did, the one thing that came out of it last year was, I think the biggest thing was personal hangars for security, and that's now been finished internally and is going to ship in Odyssey, so
Nice.
It took us a bit of time, but that's coming out, and that's a direct product of last year's Wormhole Roundtable, people telling us they couldn't recruit because of security issues. So like that kind of stuff, where there's little things that are giving you guys a lot of pain, then that's the kind of things we want to target fix, because we're really happy with how it is currently. We don't want to rock the boat too much, but we also want to make sure that it's still proceeding smoothly kind of thing. So,
Thank you.
It's roundtable 2 at 2 o'clock.
okay, there you go.
I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions, just to keep the schedule for the next panel. So,
I'd like to thank you for the Black Ops changes, the buffs, and another question I have is, for the Venturer, do you ever follow up and see if it's being used in null-sec or low-sec, or just in high-sec? Because I've never seen it.
sorry, could you get a bit closer to the mic? Speak
Sorry,
up a bit.
I've never seen the Venturer like out of high-sec, so do you ever follow up and see if it's being used as intended? Like the mining frigate. You said it was used for like, or supposed to be used for like null-sec or low-sec.
That was the idea behind it, yeah.
Do you ever follow up to make sure it's being used in those areas?
So I haven't looked at the data myself. I know I've looked at the volume of usage for the Venture and that it's been quite popular, and I also do see it in a lot of high-sec belts. So no, I haven't actually looked at the data regarding its usage in low-sec mining.
I think also like there's broader issues with mining in low-sec and mining in null-sec that like it's not really a hit problem so much as it's a content problem. And if you come to Fozzie's resource rebalancing roundtable on Saturday, you probably hear some more about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I have a question about the UI thing, because when the thing was new, I experienced many times when you're in PvP and you think you're pointed, you're really scrammed. I know there are two icons for the scrambler and the point, but you only use the point icon. And when you're really depending on your micro drive, it kind of sucks that you think you're pointed, but you're really scrammed. So are you thinking of putting both icons into the UI thing?
I have a horrible feeling this is something I axed. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I know what he's talking about. I don't know how much work it would be to do. I have to talk to Fergus about that. But it
was on the backlog to add during that effect bar iteration, and I can certainly understand the confusion that's going to cause. This is certainly something we'll look into.
Yeah, because otherwise you'd have to scroll down the overview again, find the guy, look, is he under 10 kilometers from me? Because, then it's a scram.
Yeah.
It's a good feedback, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool.
Very good.
Okay, well, thanks very much for your time and your contribution. I think we'll leave it there, and have a great FanFest.